It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Dr. Doug Depew, DMD, MS, who has been practicing in the northwest suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia since 1990. He graduated Magna Cum Laude, I don't even know what that means, from the University of Georgia, received his dental degree from the Medical College of Georgia, and received his certificate in orthodontics and master's degree from Baylor College of Dentistry at Baylor University. He and his wife, Vicky, have 3 amazing children, along with 2 daughters-in-laws, and 5, soon-to-be 6 grandchildren. And in his spare time, he enjoys raising and training his quarter horses and other outdoor activities. Dr. Depew is also the founder and academic director of Trapezio, which provides formal training for orthodontic staff members and is endorsed by the American Association of Orthodontists. As the program creator, he is frequently invited to speak at professional meetings around the country and overseas. He is also proud to have served as a member and chairman of the AAO Council on Technology. And I wanted to open up this interview with the fact that I'm looking at, when I got out of school, there were 8 specialties in dentistry, and now there's 12. And I can't think of any one of the specialties that's been under more competitive forces, more turned upside down than orthodontics. I mean, most endodontists are competing with another endodontist across the street. I mean, it's like an accountant versus a bookkeeper. But, you guys have been going with publicly traded companies, Smile Direct Club, do-it-yourself. I mean, My God. And you guys were the first ones to even do a DSO. Remember, you're in Georgia where Gaspar Lazara started this whole thing with Orthodontic Centers of America back in the 80s. And when I got out of school in 87, there's about 12 publicly tradeds on NASDAQ, and they all famously imploded, and Wall Street's never touched them again. Not one of these DSOs could do an IPO on NASDAQ, which makes me wonder what's wrong with the business to do that. But my first question to you is, it's May 19th, so in another couple of weeks, 6,500 children are going to graduate from dental kindergarten school, and they're going to be thrown out of their protective reserve into the wild world. And if one of them said to you, I want to specialize in ortho, would you sit there and say, my God, you need oxygen, pick any other specialty than ortho? I mean, it's so competitive, all this. Would you even recommend a kid going into ortho school these days?
Howard, I believe I would, because I really enjoy it. I think there's still tons of growth for all of us out there. In fact, my son gets out of school in 5 weeks, and he'll be joining me. So I definitely would, and he's going to have a great future.
How cool is that to have your son follow you?
For sure. So I'll be working with him for I'm sure quite a while, but I'll let him handle the most of it. So we'll see how that works.
I was so lucky that all 4 of my sons followed me into drinking, cussing, and smoking, and that was the only thing they picked up on me. I brought you on because, to get to the party, you got to get A's in calculus and physics and geometry and trig and calculus. And that brings in a lot of high-tech bookworms that sat in the library going through those calculus books and all that kind of stuff. And then they get out and they find out that they really needed the skill set of a communications major that was running a sorority, the people skills to talk to the staff and the patients. And we started Dental Town in 1999, and you can start your own poll. And for 23 years, every time I polled them, what stresses you out the most? It's not what bracket to use, what arch wire, what bonding. It's always a human. It's either the staff or the patient. And then this crazy glutton of a punishment named you said, hell, I want to train all these staff. What was your next worst idea after training the staff? What was your next idea? To train crazy patients how to wear a retainer?
Probably my next worst idea was opening a second office, and then a third. But so we started this training course, Trapezio, back in 1999. And what happened? I was been a practice for 9 years, and I was growing very rapidly every year, literally 30% a year. And I saw the issue with having a lack of trained team members, especially the assistants. And as you know, in orthodontics, the assistants do a good bit of the hands-on workforce. And but the thing is, in orthodontics, historically, everybody's been trained on the job. There's not been an orthodontic school out there as such. And so people are being trained on the job, and you could literally have somebody who's working at McDonald's one day, flipping burgers, and at your office next day, poking people with sharp instruments, and being untrained. So I just got this idea one day. In fact, what happened was I was sitting there in the clinic, going from patient to patient. I look over at chair number 5, and there's one of my brand new team members been with me for about 2 weeks, and she was working on the daughter of my wife's best friend. And I about had a cow that I was afraid she'd, slip and poke the young lady. And so I had this epiphany that something had to be done about it. And so I spent a good couple of years developing a formal training program with a bunch of courses. And I took it to the State Board of Education, and we got licensed as a vocational school. And we eventually branched out to, we think we were in 7 states at one time. And then we ended up taking it all back in-house and took it online. So now we're primarily online.
So now, did COVID change your program to be more virtual and online? And pre-COVID, was it more classroom and all that?
No, we made a switch to online around 2005 or 2006, I think it was. And so it's been quite a while we've been online.
So if you go to, where's the name Trapezio come from? Is that the trapezius major holding up your head, your traps?
It's just a made up name. I had a marketing guru come up with it for me, and I don't really know what it means. It is a word in, I think, Italian. There's also a wine called Trapezio, I found out. So we have a line of wine, and I don't drink, but I don't know what it means. It's just a name that's kind of catchy and easy to remember, I suppose. We used to, our first we were called the Academy of Orthodontic Assisting, but when we started bringing on other courses, like for financial coordinators and insurance coordinators, we had to come up with a more generic name that kind of encompassed everything. So,
well, I love your my God, if you go to Trapezio, and by the way, that's really cool. I know that Xerox and a lot of these companies, the reason they named them Xerox was because it wasn't a word. And I've heard that look at every new prescription pill. They had to go to the end of the alphabet. They'll pull out an X, Y, or Z or P.
There's always an X.
Yeah,
or Z, right?
Yeah, and they're getting these. But I mean, it's amazing. So you have, if you go to Trapezio, Trapezio. You have Orthodontic Assistant Level 1, 14 lesson course details the fundamentals of orthodontic assisting. Orthodontic Assisting Level 2, designed for the more experienced or senior clinical assistants. Ortho Common Knowledge. This program is perfect for non-clinical team members that need basic education and knowledge of the fundamentals. OSHA Safety. The Academy of OSHA Safety is an online training resource for the entire practice. Insurance coordinators. I thought that was interesting because I don't think of orthodontics as something that insurance is paying for. I'd like you to talk about that. Insurance coordinators, educational program for those individuals who fill the vital role of filling insurance claims in an orthodontics office. Treatment coordinators. I mean, that's the highest paid in only 15% of Americans work for a publicly traded company on the Russell 2000, and the other 85% work for a small business, 25 employees or less. And in all those businesses, the only two people making the big bucks is the owner and the salesperson. And in dentistry, it's the guy in the back running the machine shop is the dentist and orthodontist, and that's the highest paid guy in dentistry, but it should be the person answering the phone, incoming sales, calling out outgoing sales, and closing the sale, a treatment coordinator.
Right. And in our practice, we make it so that every person in practice has some kind of role in the sales, whether it's, of course, the treatment coordinator is the front desk, but also even the clinical assistants, they ask for referrals, for example, those kind of things. So everybody's involved in the sales process.
And, well, I mean, I don't know if you realize what you just said, but these kids in dental school, they when you say sell dentistry, it's like it's a profanity. It's like you use the Lord's name in vain. They're like, sales? I didn't go to school 8 years to be a used car salesman. I mean, they just hate sales. But the bottom line is this. I have 4 kids. They've turned into 6 grandkids. And if I pass on and my 6 grandkids go to you as a dentist, they each have 3 cavities each, and you can't convince them to accept treatment and give them their debit card, you're not a very good dentist. And most dentists think they're a good dentist because they got this whole alphabet soup behind their name. But or the materials they use, like, well, I don't use amalgam. I only use Ivoclar composite. Yeah,
Right.
but the person didn't accept treatment. I would have rather you remove the decay and filled it with butter. That is a better dentist than the guy using Ivoclar products only, but no one accepts treatment, so he never uses it. So if you can't sell the dentistry, you're not a doctor. You're just you're living in a fantasy.
Well, right? And there are guys out there that can't do it, and they end up working for somebody else.
Yeah, so go back to insurance coordinators, because that I was not expecting to see insurance coordinators as one of your classes, because I just think that, I just thought insurance
a couple of things.
Doesn't cover
ortho. First of all, insurance in orthodontics, we find that a good percentage of our patients have it, or the parents do. I don't remember the survey that McGill did a while ago, but it's probably around 30% of patients, maybe even as high as 50% of patients actually have insurance that covers orthodontics, and it covers typically somewhere between $1,000 and $3,000 of insurance, or of the treatment fee. And so it's usually a lifetime benefit up to 50% of the fee. So very typically will have for example, $6,000 fee. They'll have a $2,000 benefit, and that's what they'll pay, is $2,000 towards it. But insurance in orthodontics works differently than it does in medicine, for sure, and even different than it does in regular dentistry. Because in dentistry, most of your procedure codes are based on something that's already been done. You can't even submit it until you finish your crown or whatever. In orthodontics, it's based on your treatment plan. And so you actually submit the insurance when you start treatment, not when you're finished. And so the codes are different. They work different. And the way you submit them is really important to do it properly, so you're reimbursed properly. We also try not to step on the toes of our general dentist friends by using up their benefits for example, panoramic X-rays. We try not to step on their toes and use those, and that kind of thing. So it's important to realize the differences and how to submit it to be reimbursed properly and efficiently. And during the patient's treatment time, you want to be reimbursed while they're still in braces, because sometimes insurance companies will stop paying when they find out the patient's out of braces. So there's all kinds of tricks and tips to do to have it work properly for you in your practice.
And then I'm embarrassed to say this, but one of your courses, it's called Soa Prep Course, and I can't even figure out what Soa stands for.
Well, that's something I did for the AAO. They do have a certification program for clinical assistants, and we basically condensed our level 1 and level 2 courses into a preparation course to take their exam.
But what's the SOA stand for?
Stands for Specialized Orthodontic Assistant.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of the COA that they have out there, that DAMI does, the COA.
Yeah.
But this is designed specifically for orthodontic assistants, and so it doesn't have a lot of the fluff in there that we see that COA may have. So.
My gosh, and what I really loved is okay. So again, even the law of dentistry. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know if this is still the case, but I remember when I got here, I was listening to a case, and since the patient never gave the dentist $1, nothing kicked in yet. I mean, the whole business of dentistry and eye treating doesn't even start until there's a transaction, and the case was thrown out because no dollar had changed hands, and they're like, this isn't even. It doesn't even. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but I heard that. But financial coordinators, QuickBooks Pro, I mean, look at how many orthodontic programs are out there for orthodontists to run their office, and not one of them is synced with Quicken, QuickBooks Pro. So every orthodontist has got all of his patients' names and address and billings and everything in maybe Cloud9 Ortho or something.
Right.
And then they got all this other stuff in Quicken, and then that's why the dentist doesn't know their costs. But if you would have been smart enough to skip ortho school and buy a Dairy Queen, that would all be merged, and then Dairy Queen would start telling you, Doug, you close, this is Wednesday, you close at midnight, and it's 9 o'clock and you still have 7 crew members in, and our crew labor is supposed to be 19%, and you need to send home John and Brett if you want to make goal. And
Right.
you see these 24, 25, 26-year-old kids that have so many augmented data. They have fax machines around McDonald's, and the 27-year-old kid gets a fax machine and says, Ellen's working up front. She's on the cash register, and she's usually between $9 and $18 short. So either go fire her, or if you have any extra time, teach her how to set the bill on the tray and make change correctly, because
Right.
she doesn't know how to make. But anyway, they're so augmented with data that 27-year-old kids can run a $1.4 million McDonald's and hit all
Yeah.
his numbers and 19% crew labor, the whole 9
Yeah.
yards. And
They're
then you go into
managing
dentistry.
restaurants.
And,
Yeah.
and then you go into dentistry, and you have a hygienist that's worked there 10 years. She gets done doing a cleaning exam and bite wings. And you say, hey, Harry, the hygienist, you just did your 1,000th cleaning exam and bite wings. Did the office net $9.12 after taxes, or did you lose $15? And the whole office is like, there's not one person in the entire office that has any idea what's going on. But Walmart, I don't know if you heard about this. This is so damn cool. Walmart now closes out all of their books for the entire company every hour on the hour. Every time it's a new hour, their books are closed and updated. And
Wow.
and dentistry, it's so data poor. And then it surprised me to see that you actually have a course on QuickBooks and ortho and financial coordinators. I mean, my gosh, I've even called Quicken. And by the way, you're never supposed to talk about religion, sex, politics, or violence. But the thing that made me the most mad about Bill Clinton is Bill Gates. He said, look, I created a standard in Word, in PowerPoint, in Excel, and I think what the small business, all the Fortune 500, they're all incorporated out of Delaware. They all use S&P accounting out of Germany, and the small business is trying to do it on Quicken, and I need to buy Quicken and Intuit and merge that in to get a standard deal. And then Bill Clinton says, oh, it's a monopoly, and he blocks the move. And so
Wow.
that was clear. When did Clinton take office? 92. So,
Okay, yes,
so that was
close.
92, and this is almost 2022, and
Yeah.
3 decades later, I'm screaming at Bill Clinton thinking they still don't know their numbers because you blocked it. And so how do you teach financial coordinators, treatment coordinators, insurance coordinators, but have a whole separate course on QuickBooks and ortho? How do you teach this bipolar, multiple personality, schizophrenic thing we call the business of dentistry, where Dentrix and EagleSoft, and none of them are smart enough to make a merger with Intuit?
Right.
And I called
Right.
Intuit, and they said, Howard, they go, look, I know, I hear you. I've written them letters. They said, we have an entire department that merges Quicken with an auto industry or a Hertz Rent-A-Car. This is all we do. All they have to do
Wow.
is pick up the phone, and guess what? No one's ever called us. And so my question is
Wow.
this: how do you try to teach multiple personalities Quicken when half their data is on Dentsply, EagleSoft, Open Dental? How do you do that? Cloud9.
Well-
what ortho software do you use?
I use Cloud9. Yeah.
Okay. And why
And
did
we-
you
and
not
we-
go
we-
with Cloud10? It's a little higher up.
Yeah. Well, Cloud9 is pretty incredible. It's of course cloud based, and that's the name, right? But the reason I got on Cloud9 was because what I was using before required a server, and I had 2 locations at the time. And when they told me I needed to have 3 servers, I said no thanks, and moved on. And it was really slow too. So this Cloud9 is amazingly fast and very, very stable. And I can log in from anywhere. I've logged in from hunting lodges in South America, airports in Europe, to look at cases. So it's pretty amazing. Back to your question about treatment coordinators. The course on treatment coordinators itself the course for treatment coordinators is focuses on a couple of main things. One is is setting up contracts with patients and what's involved with that. Second part of it is collections for bad accounts and focus on those two main areas. It of course dovetails with the insurance and of course with the QuickBooks course. The QuickBooks course we created because we were asked to do that by several doctors, and a lot of them use QuickBooks for their accounting, but also they use it for their patient ledgers, which I found pretty amazing. And we found an office manager out of Alabama who actually was a QuickBooks certified instructor, and she created a course for us, and it's done pretty well. So,
one of the things I've always noticed is that I lectured 1,000 times in 1,000 cities and 50 countries, and it's so cool. I took 1, 2, 3, or 4 of those boys to all those foreign countries, and they still say to this day they learn more in their childhood visiting 50 countries than they ever did at college. And but one of the things that I noticed is that whenever I lectured, half of the room would be like all individual dentists. They just come by themselves. And the right side of the room, every row was an office. It was doctor, spouse, office manager. The whole damn row was the staff. Well, if I would go through there and collect the IRS statements, the group that brought their whole staff to the seminar, they were all $1 million practices taking home $250, and then all the individuals that came by themselves saving money were all probably making $150 or whatever. So how does this work on the difference between, okay, I need to train Karen, but I like my whole team to be trained. I don't like individual training. I want team-based training, just like you have team-based. You have individual pay, like my assistants might make 20 and my hygienist might make 40, but you have an office bonus, so how do you balance individual training versus team-based training when you know that an office that is focused on team-based training and gets everybody on board, they just knock it out of the ballpark. So how do you balance that in a Zoom world?
Let me mention two things to answer your question. Number one is I definitely recommend, and we do this, we take 1 day a month for training. So that's, if we work 16 days for a month, one of those 16 days is a training day. And it goes back to the analogy of, you've heard the analogy that, who was it did it? Anyways, the one with the two guys that are sawing down trees, and one guy stops every 20 minutes to sharpen his saw, right? And the other guy just keeps sawing away. And the guy who stopped periodically did a lot better. And so the analogy for me for that is if we just stop and breathe 1 day a month, and work on training and collaboration, and sharpening our saw and sharpening our procedures, our protocols, and it makes you a better practice working together as a team. That's point number one. I'm trying to remember what point number two was. Point number two was, you said training as a team is this, especially our assisting course level 1. It's designed and meant to be done as a group. It doesn't have to be done that way, but we have found very, very often, if you just have your new person do it, that she'll end up knowing more than everybody's been doing it there for years and years and years. And so we do recommend doctors purchase the program as a subscription for their entire practice, and they can go through it together and learn to the same standard level of understanding and skills.
So for Cloud 9, would you ever consider calling Mike Russell, who's down there in the same?
I know Mike.
Yeah, he's in Atlanta. Telling him to just call Quicken and get that thing merged so that data'd all be in the same place, or because there's a lot of AI going on right now in dentistry.
Sure.
And the AI, the way I see these guys talking about AI, it's not going to be very long where you're going to have a very intelligent system, like say at McDonald's, augmenting the dentist, saying, you're going to have algorithms running that are going to try to help the dentist make better managerial decisions, and it just would be so much easier if all that data was.
Well, I know Mike pretty well. He's their headquarters used to be 2 miles from my office in the other direction, and they recently moved their headquarters to where he lives, about 45 minutes away. So he's no longer that close, but yeah, it's something we can discuss and see if it's something he's interested in looking at, because I never thought of it that way, but it totally makes sense. to have some kind of the thing is Cloud9, because it's cloud based and it's database driven. They integrate with a lot of different things. And so what's one more thing to integrate with? And they can integrate with QuickBooks so that your deposits drop into QuickBooks and everything. That'd be wonderful. So, yeah.
So do you also know the most famous dentist in Georgia, Drew Ferguson, who's a congressman?
Drew Ferguson was in school, dental school, the year, I think, after me. I remember him, but I haven't seen him since dental school. But great guy.
Well, tell that great guy that I've been trying to get him on the show for 7 years. And I just think it's really, really cool. I mean, we've obviously never had a dentist as the president of the United States. We've never had one as the Supreme Court justice or in the Senate. But it's pretty damn cool that we actually have 5 dentists in there.
That's great.
I went to school with one of them at Creighton, and it's kind of funny when I talk to them. They tell you how the government sees dentistry differently, and one of the things they're not very happy about is the fact that dentists. It takes 5 days. Ever since the ADA's tracked it, when an American needs to see a dentist, the wait is about 10 or 11 days at the height. It gets down to between like 4.5, 5.5, and now it's drifting back up again. And I'm like, guys, this is why nobody will ever listen to your whining and complaining, because they're Americans and get a pizza delivered in 30 minutes, but they have to wait 10 days to see a dentist. Is that an issue in orthodontics? I mean, does seeing you today, do people call up and want to be seen today? And is it a problem? You say, well, I can't see you today, but I could see you a week from now.
We see it more and more nowadays because of what you said, the attitude of everybody and the get it quick mentality. I do know there are several practices out there that do have a 3, 4, 5, 6 week wait. In our practice and in many practices that people that I work with that work similar to me, they allow for it by having 2 or even 3 treatment coordinators per doctor. And so it allows more time to schedule. And one thing my team are trained to do is when somebody calls and asks for a new patient appointment, the first question is, would you like to be seen today? And they'll make a spot for them. So we try to get them in as soon as we can.
Again, if I go around the world and I ask everybody on Earth the difference between a sine, a cosine, and a tangent, they tell you exactly what it is. And then you go around the office and you start talking about customer service, office culture, things like that. It's a very wide-ranging answer. And my guys are the ones who sat in a library for 8 years getting A's in math and physics and chemistry, and everything that stresses them is either the patient not happy with the customer service or the staff and the culture. My question to you is, now that your son's entering your practice, are you just born a leader or not? Can a geometry major actually ever develop a personality? Can they be trained to be a leader? How do you, I mean, I know it stresses out my dentist. I mean, they say things like, I'm hiding in my office because I know my hygienist is going to ask me for a raise at the end of the day. So I'm trying to sneak out. And I'm like, dude, you can't, your hygienist wants a raise and you want to sneak out. I mean,
I think being a leader of a practice, a small business, I think it can be learned, but there are plenty of people out there who have it naturally. And I mean, they came out of school and started great and just have a way with people, whether it's patients or team members. So I think, being born with it is probably a big plus, right? But to some extent, I think you can learn it over time with the right mentors. And you mentioned earlier when you were first in practice, your kids went with you to visit other practices, I believe you said. And that's one thing I did early in my career was I went out and visited a lot of other practices, dental practices, orthodontic practices, surgical practices, periodontic practices. I visited all of them in my local area, but also out of state. And just to learn how they did things and what their culture is all about and techniques, procedures, marketing, all those things I learned from other people right after I got out of school, within a year or two of getting out of school. And, we learn from other people and fortunately in dentistry, we share things. We're really good about sharing our ideas. And that's a great thing. We kind of have a brotherhood and we love sharing what we do. And that's a nice thing to have.
You know, I've never had an original idea in my life. My gosh, I'm a dentist, and guess what? My next door neighbor, Kenny Anderson, was a dentist. So I either went to work with my dad at Sonic Drive-In and loving my life, but we just made onion rings and tater tots, or I went to work with Kenny Anderson, who had this X-ray machine. Remember, we didn't have laptops, we didn't have smartphones, we didn't have any of that stuff. We didn't even have an electric garage door opener. That's he would take an X-ray through a tooth, and then you get to go in the dark room with like this hottest dental assistant in the world, and then look through the tooth, and I would just love at first sight. I mean, I was totally going to be a dentist, but my gosh, when you look your son in the eyes, does he have the same opportunity, do you think, that you and I had when we walked out of school? Does he have that same opportunity in 2021? Or do you think it's just going to be, a lot tougher?
Howard, I think it's a different opportunity. It's not the same opportunity. When I got out of school, when you got out of school, we were probably around the same time. We were told that the golden age has already passed. It was in the 60s and 70s. And yet, in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, we're doing far, far better. And we've got so much new innovation that makes what we do so much more fun and exciting. And we're doing things now we wouldn't even dream of doing 20 or 30 years ago. Cone beam CTs, for example. In our practice, we use the temporary action devices, TADs. We did all kinds of things. Clear liners, look how far clear liners have come, where now we can do clear liners in our own office. We can take a scan of a patient and have them clear liners the next day if we want to, and just as good as the big labs can do, and much faster. So, we've come a long way. It makes what we do fun, and I really think my son's going to have a great time doing it. It's going to be different, yes, but I think he's going to be fine.
You wrote a book, Change Your Smile, Change Your Life, Your Guide to Orthodontic Treatment by D. Douglas. There it is, right there.
While I was waiting for it, I went and got props. Here's my prop.
Well, so. I remember 30 years ago when people started getting that business card, and there was a real big satire. And what was that movie with the what was that crazy schizophrenic movie guy? My gosh.
Oh gosh.
The real famous actor, the real famous. No. But anyway, he was talking about his business. He listened to Huey Lewis in the news, and but anyway, he was obsessing on that guy's business card. It was like American Psycho. I think it was American Psycho.
Yeah. Okay.
Was that it? But anyway, the business card was a really, really neat deal. I mean, I can still remember when people hand out a business card and you thought, damn, you have your name on a card.
Yeah.
Did you write your book? Is the book the new business card? Is it marketing? Is it validation? Did it increase new referrals? And by the way, congratulations. You've only got 5-star ratings on your book on Amazon. You haven't gotten 1 4-star rating. Change Your Smile, Change Your Life, Your Guide to Orthodontic Treatment. But
we were even a New York Times bestseller for about 5 minutes. So it's really awesome.
5 minutes?
So,
and what was
a very short time.
I always say, you said you had 3 kids, right?
Yes.
I always said that writing a book, I mean, I've written some books, and it's like having a baby. I mean, a baby is made and incubates in 9 months. It usually takes longer than 9 months to write a book. I mean, it's a hell of a big deal.
Mine was a little bit over a year.
Yeah. So what was the drive behind that?
It was primarily marketing. It's definitely not to make money, because we use it as a business card. And, I have a closet full of these things, and every patient who inquires gets one. I sign the books right in front of them if they're in the office, and they really appreciate that. And I get good feedback on it. It's written at a level where anybody can understand it. And it really just explains what orthodontics is all about to a lay person. It is for sale on Amazon. It does get some sales, but by far the biggest reason is to it helps to cement my position in my community as the authority in what I do. And I guess a big part of the reason that doctors write books in their specialty, and it just helps to have people realize that you know what you're talking about and that you are the expert, and that's the perception they get from that. When I walk in the exam room instead of my associate, for example, they go, "Wow, we get Dr. Depew. He wrote that book," and so that's a big thing.
I don't lecture to win friends and influence people. I'm not here looking for a friend. I'm here. I call my podcast Dentistry Uncensored because I'm gonna go for the juggler vein. That's what we do. And
Not mine.
I know what's that?
Don't go for mine.
Well, I want to ask you about it. I'm going to get you in trouble because I know my homies.
Yeah.
I know my dentists. I've lectured to them for 30 years, and there is a significant group of general dentists who think that when an orthodontist removes 4 bicuspids, he's going to dish the face, and you ruined everything, and you're just looking at the occlusion, and you're not looking at the face. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, first of all, are you saying that out of 7.5 billion humans on Earth, that none of them need 4 bicuspid extractions? I had a patient whose father plays for the Arizona Cardinals and is about 6'4", and his abs look like rope that's on like a selling. Yeah. And he married some 5'5" little cheerleader chick, and when her daughter came in, the orthodontist wanted 9 teeth removed, the 4 wisdom teeth, the 4 bicuspids, and a central. I mean, she had her father's NFL teeth in her mother's jaws. And the other red flag is when you ever say never, always. I mean, when you're a dentist and you say like amalgam. Every study ever done on amalgam averages that they last about 38 years. Most amalgams fail because of recurrent decay, like all cavities. Mm-hmm. And look at an amalgam. It's half mercury. You won't find that in the multivitamins. It's got silver diamine fluoride. It's got tin, stannous fluoride. I mean, the whole thing's antibacterial, and they last 38 years. And dentist says, well, I don't have amalgam in my office. Really? You got 2,000 patients? And there's not one patient that would need a look at Alzheimer's. So here's grandma. She doesn't recognize her own children. She doesn't know where she's at. And if I do 7 class 5s with inert composite, they're going to last 6 months. If I use glass ionomer, it's got an active ingredient, it might last a year. But if I do amalgam, it lasts 4 years. And the dentist tells me, well, I'm accredited at the AACD. Really? You do cosmetic dentistry on people that don't know their name? I mean, so when someone says to me, when someone says to me, there is no indication for anything, I know they're an extremist and they're nuts, but what would you say to these dentists who do not believe in any use of bicuspid extraction? And did you cover that in your book?
It is covered in the book, for sure.
Nice.
But the main thing is we look at the whole patient, the whole picture. We look at, first of all, the profile, the smile, of course, how the teeth fill the smile up. The amount of crowding is a part of it, and a big part of it, but it's not the only part of it. And, I look at every case. Like you said, don't say always and don't say never. There are cases that shouldn't have it. There are cases that should have it. There are cases who can benefit from it. There are cases that will make treatment easier and more predictable if you do it. But there are other alternatives too. You can distalize molars, you can IPR, you can use all kinds of things you can do instead of extractions. But there's still plenty of cases out there that need it. We have to pick and choose the ones based on experience, based on science, based on literature that's been peer reviewed for statistics and reliability, and pick the cases with proper diagnosis and treatment planning with all the right records, and make the right decision. The other part I don't think you mentioned was people are concerned also about airway, and that's definitely a concern and something we've got to watch for. And I think part of the reason we got the idea of dishing in faces is you really have to be careful of the torque of the incisors. If you maintain the torque of the incisors, you can protract all the molars into any remaining space and not affect the profile at all. You look at people like Prince William's wife. She's had extractions done. Heidi Klum's had extractions done. Miss America, Miss Universe. A lot of them have all had it. They have beautiful smiles. They're beautiful people. And it's not like we've created monsters because we've taken out 4 teeth. That being said, people in general don't like the idea of losing part of their body until they get that. And so if we're going to do it, we're going to do a very thorough analysis and decide whether it is the best thing to do or not. And And oftentimes it's not. And, you know, in my practice, I would say we probably extract less than 10%, but I don't keep a track of that because I extract when I need to. And it is needed in many cases. And, you know, if you measure crowding and someone has, you know, totally blocked out canine teeth, they have 14 millimeters of crowding in their mouth, in their upper arch, for example. You take out 2 bites, you're not making the mouth any smaller. You're just taking 1 tooth and replacing it with another tooth. And so there are cases where it's needed, and you know, we look carefully to decide the ones that need it.
Yeah, you said that people don't want to lose a part of their body. Says a man with all his hair to a bald man. That was just that just hurt.
Well, I'm getting there.
I see the same thing now with some of your orthodontist colleagues about Invisalign. They say I only do Invisalign. I'm like, 7.5 billion people and nobody needs a bracket or an edge wire, or I mean, is that kind of a crazy statement? Isn't that kind of extremist when you say you're going to take away a whole modem of treatment because your special magic hands?
Yeah.
You know, how would you address that?
There are plenty of docs out there that have been doing Invisalign so much and so long that they're really good at doing things that many doctors wouldn't touch. And that's a good thing that the doctors who wouldn't touch it recognize it. But clear aligners have come a long ways in the last 10 years, even 5 years, where we can do things we couldn't do before. They're great at the finishing part of the treatment, where you just go on and do the fine tuning things. But as you know, Howard, there are many movements that aligners have a hard time doing. Extrusion being one of those. And of course, impacting teeth, you can do it, but it's a struggle, you know? So we're finding most teenagers still want to have braces, silver braces, and adults, you know, adults in general are pretty savvy. They realize that if they got really crooked teeth, they realize they may not be an Invisalign case, and a clear aligner case. The nice thing is now we have other companies out there that do aligners, in my opinion, just as well or better than Invisalign, that are out there. I use 3M quite a bit. I love 3M aligners, and they do a great job. And so we have alternatives we can do. But it's important that whenever you do aligners, that it's done by someone who understands the biology of tooth movement, who understands the limitations of aligners, and understands the limitations of aligners in their own hands. And it's important for doctors to realize and patients to realize that they're not getting Invisalign treatment. They're getting treated by a doctor who does Invisalign. And there's a big difference. Clear aligners are just a tool. They're not the treatment. They are a tool that a skilled doctor uses.
Are you agnostic with brackets and braces and wires, or do you only use a certain bracket? I mean, some people, you know, they only use one company's brackets, braces, and they swear by them. And other people, they use 2 or 3 different ones. Do you think one bracket is better than them all, or are you kind of agnostic and say that's the small part of it?
That's a small part of it. I mean, a skilled doctor can straighten teeth with a paper clip and masking tape. So, you know, there are brackets out there that are better from a manufacturing standpoint. They have better stress tolerance, better bonding capabilities, that kind of thing. But as far as the mechanics of how they work, for example, self-ligating versus non-self-ligating and passive ligating versus active self-ligating, to me, the jury's still out there, and I can straighten teeth just as easy with or without the fancy brackets. And I prefer the 3M brackets, partially because they come pre-pasted or with the adhesive already attached to them, so that it saves you some time. But they do cost a little bit more. So, but the bracket itself, they're so similar from company to company that to answer your question, I'm more or less agnostic as far as which ones are the best.
Another thing that I was very intrigued by you is you have a website, mylingualbraces.com. So when I was little and I got out of dental school in 87, clear aligners were really lingual braces. And, you know, if you couldn't have anybody see your braces, you got lingual braces. But I have to admit, it seemed like there were 2 types of lingual braces patient. If you got the Curious George tongue, where you started playing with it on the lingual side, you would just turn your tongue to hamburger. You just you could not play with this thing. But so my question is, did clear aligners extinct lingual braces? Did they is clear aligners lingual braces 2.0? Is it still a thing? What's the deal on lingual braces?
They're definitely still out there, but I will tell you, even in just the last 2 years, myself and many of the people who are really big in lingual braces have cut back quite a bit in favor of clear aligners, just because the ease of starting the case and that kind of thing. We still do them. We still get requests for them, and they're somewhat enjoyable to do, but they're hard. They're very difficult for yourself and for the staff and for the patient. As you mentioned about the tongue, on a narrow mouth, they have a hard time with them. We have found that people get irritated more by the posterior brackets than they do the anterior brackets. I thought it would be the other way around, but everybody says it's the premolar and molar brackets that bug the tongue. So if someone's got a narrow mouth, we try to steer away from it and go to something else where there's clear brackets, ceramic brackets, or aligners. But there are people, the thing is that with aligners, Howard, is there are a lot of patients that admit they couldn't wear these things 22 hours a day for months on end. I myself couldn't do it. And so if someone really admits, I don't think I can wear clear aligners, a great alternative is lingual braces because they're invisible. So
that is,
and they're still quite popular in Europe too.
They are.
But to answer your question, yeah, aligners have to some degree replaced lingual braces in the U.S. from my perception.
And how geeky techie are you? I mean, are on like clear aligners? Are you thinking about 3D printing your own, or are you like that's just nerd stuff? And where are you at in the technology curve on that?
I'm as just said, I'm on the AAO technology committee. I'm cutting edge technology, so I do have 3D printers in my office. I have 3D digital lab tech that works on these things along with me. I do plan every case, and I finalize every case before it goes to the printer. I even send them to the printer myself because I'm sitting right there doing it. And but we do our own in-house aligners ourselves. In my practice right now, I'm limited to the smaller cases. If I anticipate less than 20 aligners, I'll do it myself. If I anticipate more than that, I'll send them to the outside lab. In our case, it's 3M Clarity aligners that we love, by the way. And we send them to the outside lab. It's a bigger, longer case, primarily just because of the lab space and time and mess that's potentially involved with that many aligners for a single patient. And the lab can do it faster than we can. And they got a great system in place to do it. So, yeah. So we do in-house aligners. We do several a week. And it's a great way to help those cases that need some movement, but not a lot of movement. And we get them back faster. If you go to Invisalign or 3M, it might take 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks to get them back. That's after you approve the case. With in-house, we have them back in a week easily. And we have the capability of doing it the same day if we want to. So there's a lot of big pluses to doing in-house. In fact, with our Invisalign and 3M Clarity liner cases, we will very often, when they get to near the end of the treatment, you want to do one little last refinement, rather than taking 6 weeks to send to the lab and have them send back 5 more trays. We just do it ourselves because we get them back in a week, and their teeth can be done by the time 3M would get them back to us. So we very often finish the cases with our own aligners.
So, where do you think dentistry's changing? Obviously, in 3 decades since I've been out. This is May 19th, and May 11th, 8 days ago, was my 34-year anniversary in dental school. But I'm
31.
31 years out. Oh, unbelievable. Yeah. But in 2005, if you were under 35 in 2005, 49% owned their own dental office. And now we fast forward to 2019, it's dropped to 30. So it's gone from 50 to 30. So, my gosh, I mean, 20%. That's a lot. 20% of the dentists by 35 more, own their own dental office. 50% in 2005, and now it's down to 30%. What do you think that's all about? And is that a good thing, a bad thing? Where's that coming from? Kind of like, I want to say this, and I'm going to clear up one thing about the 4 bicuspid extraction. Whenever I hear these extremist positions, I always want to know first, where does this come from? And it makes me think that when you say probably only 10% of your cases max need 4 bicuspid, did it used to be a lot more 3 decades ago?
Nope.
It's really been the same. So it was never like an abused procedure where there was some orthodontist on Hillbilly Hill that did
Yeah, well, I
flybys on
mean,
everyone.
as you're aware, there have been times. It's like a pendulum. There's back in the '60s where tests were done on pretty much everybody, right? And then it swung back to in the late '80s, early '90s, where, oh no, don't take out teeth, right? And then it swung, the other way now, where we're kind of back the other way, where we're kind of between the two. And yeah, it's just there are people who took out teeth probably when they shouldn't have, and again, it's really a judgment call based on experience and skill and knowledge.
So from 2005 to 2020, in just 15 years, 1 in 5 dentists less by age 35 owns their office than just 2005. How did one of my 5 fingers go from owning an office to not owning an office in 15 years? What is that all about? Where is that headed? What does it make you think when you see that, we've gone from 50% to 30% of dentists owning their own office by 35? What does that mean to you?
Well, right off the bat, I can think of two things playing into that. Number one is huge student debts, where the kids have to get out of school and they have these large debts to pay off, and they feel they cannot afford to buy a practice. That's the one big factor. The second big factor, I feel, is, of course, the corporate dentistry is coming in and taking over practices and promising things to people that sound great, but in the end may not be that great. And I think those are two main factors in that. These guys got out of school and need to earn a living, and so you go work for a corporate group or for another private doctor. In fact, that's just certainly a great option to get out of school and work for someone else who owns a practice and work under them or with them for a few years, and eventually perhaps even buy into that practice or buy out that practice. It's a great way to go. But again, these people come out of school need to make a living somehow. And so I have had associates over the years, and almost every one of them comes out of school, works with me for 3 or 4 years while they are building their own practice, an hour away from me. It's been a great thing for me to help me, have a little more free time to do what I want to do and to build my practice, and it's given them a chance to make a living, a good living, while they're starting from scratch with their own practice. And I really encourage young doctors to consider that. You will do better, far better in the end. You'll be more happy being your own boss. And it's just a great way to raise a family and have a sense of ownership in your own practice that you don't have when you work for somebody else.
So what are you going to do the first time you have an argument with your son and he runs to mom?
Well, probably hand him the keys and say, I'm done.
Say you'll retire on the spot? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
I want to talk about a totally different subject. I want to go to marketing. As you know, in 1973, it was against the law for any physician, dentist, pharmacist, anybody to advertise in professional world. And it was 2 lawyers from Arizona that took it to the Supreme Court and said, this is free speech. They agreed in 73. And when I got out 15 years later in 87, or 14 years later, it was just kind of new. It was just, and I rolled a lot of eyebrows when I went into a retail setting and took a full-page ad in the Yellow Pages. I can't tell you how many 60-year-old dentists told me, if you had cancer, would you pick a doctor out of the Yellow Pages? If you had prostate cancer, would you seek treatment to someone renting next to Safeway grocery store? They loved their medical dental buildings. They loved no advertising, and it's a different world. But I did notice this. Orthodontists blaze that trail, and I always thought it was because if the average case is $6,500 and you get a new patient, you're going to realize that revenue in 2 years. And for a general dentist to realize $6,500 from a patient is going to take 5 years. So it takes 2.5 years longer to get my money back. Back in 87, the first people I ever know that not only started advertising, but it was 3% of all collections, they were orthodontists. The first one I ever met that went to 5% was an orthodontist. The first one I ever met that was at 8% was an orthodontist. And I just met one this week. 10% of all collected revenue goes to
wow.
But he's crushed it. So, most people think that new patient flow equals cash flow. Orthodontists always talk about, if you ask them how's business, they talk about their starts. They need starts.
Mhm.
What's working in growing your practice? And do you consider yourself in Atlanta, a rural or
Suburb.
so you're a suburb of Atlanta.
Yes,
So
for sure.
it's the same type of people in advertising. I mean, you're
Yeah.
not what was that show, The Deliverance, on the
Yeah.
wasn't that in Southern Georgia?
Yeah. Southern Georgia. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I love that show. That show is just scared the hell out of me. So
Yeah.
so what's working on growing a practice these days?
It's important to realize that advertising is a part of marketing. It's not all of marketing, and marketing is not all advertising. So, I personally do not advertise a ton. I do Facebook ads, for example, and I just started doing billboards a couple of years ago, and that's actually paid off pretty well. But our main marketing is to the general dentists. Number one, just to be good friends, support their practices, that kind of thing. Number two is where's my finger at? One is our dentist friends. Number two is our schools. Believe it or not, we spend a lot of time with the schools, doing career days, sponsoring events, that kind of thing. Number three, community. We are very, very involved in our community, whether it's an event or, again, sponsoring, different events, kind of thing. And so those three areas are really big with us in our marketing, and we do spend at least 3% on just that. And I have a full-time marketing coordinator who is hardly ever in my building. She's out and about doing something all the time. She's on advisory boards at several elementary and middle schools, and she's very, very busy getting her name out there. We're so involved in the community that is crazy. So something else we've done, Howard, that is unique, and I've been copied many times over, is the brace bus. I don't know if you saw that on the website, but we do a brace bus that is a decked out H2 Hummer that goes and picks up kids from school for their appointments and brings them to the office. We run it twice a day at I think 9:30 and 10:30, I believe. And we pick up 5 or 6 kids at a time. We bring them in and do their adjustments and then send back to school. And, since we're a suburb, we're in a bedroom community. And so parents have to take off, half a day of work to take their kid to the doctor. And they don't have to do that with us. We pick them up and bring them in and do the adjustment, send them home. And parents get a email from the assistant that day, telling them what we did, what to expect, what's next, and even have the next appointment set up on the brace bus. And I've been doing this for, gosh, I'll bet it's been 20 years now. I've gone through 3 vehicles, and it's been probably the best thing I've done is the brace bus.
I'm looking at it right now. His website is DEPEW, DepewSmiles.com. DEPEW, smiles.com. That is so damn cool. The braces bus, and it's a Hummer.
Yes, it is.
Wow, that is so cool. Now I want to ask you something really controversial that gets everybody upset and everything is dentists and orthodontists, they'll sit around the table and you can talk about your braces bus and your billboards. And by the way, the billboards make sense because you got to look at the macroeconomics and work backwards. Alphabet, which owns Google and YouTube and Facebook, have sucked about 85% of all marketing revenue out of the United States, and that came mostly from television, billboards, radios. Most people, you got to realize that was the foundation for ClearChoice, because ClearChoice, the reason it got so big and was bought and sold 5 times, and now it's owned by Bob Fontana over in Aspen, is because they could come into Phoenix and buy 30-minute infomercials on TV for like $50 because grandma's surfing through the channel, and eventually you're going to I run into it all the time. And
Right.
every time they run that half an hour infomercial for 30 minutes, 3 or 4 people are going to call and someone's going to convert on a $25,000 an arch all on 4. And
Sure.
my gosh, I can't tell you. In Phoenix right now, one of my friends called me up and said, I can have my own radio station in Scottsdale if I just take over the lease of where they're renting and the payment on the equipment. So all I got to do is take over his monthly payments and I get a radio station. That's what social media and your smartphone has done to billboards. So, my God, go look at, you buy low, sell high. Right now, billboards are at rock bottom, radios, half-hour ads, TVs. I mean, it's just amazing. But I notice this. If two orthodontists are sitting at a table and they're talking about marketing, everything's cool and fun and exciting until you start talking price. And when one of the orthodontists starts saying, "Oh, we're the cheapest orthodontist in town. Everyone else is $6,500. We're $599.99.99." My gosh, that it's taboo. So when you're coaching like your son, he's coming in, following dad, and you're talking about orthodontics, do you ever talk price, or do you never? Is that not a competitive thing that you
with my
on?
colleagues in the area? I do not talk about price at all. The thing is, Howard, is I think every orthodontist knows the value of their treatment. Every dentist knows the value of their treatment, right? And if your fee is $200 more than the guy down the street, hopefully it's worth it, right? I mean, $200 difference cost a patient. What is that? $10 a month. It's absolutely worth it. If they can ride the brace bus and not have to pay for it, isn't that amazing? To get treatment for $200 more and still be able to have you ride the brace bus every month. So the value of the treatment is something we feel good about, and there's no need to be ashamed of your fees, and we're not going to battle somebody else to meet their fees, because we feel we provided a superior service, and our fees are worth it.
I also, just the other day, for the first time in my entire life, there's an orthodontist, and he's advertising that if you get braces at his place, you're going to get a free iPad.
Wow.
Have you ever seen anything like that, or a free laptop or a free tablet or anything that some kid wants? Or
for every patient, I've not seen that, but that's pretty interesting. That's pretty gutsy, but yeah.
So what do you think about that? Do you think that's just a high cost way to do it?
It's a very high cost way to do it. Yeah, but you can buy iPads now for $150.
Yeah. Yeah, I know one thing. My one of my granddaughters the other day, she needed to get, her time was up on her on her iPad video game, and she didn't want to let go of it. But when I picked her arm, that was holding the iPad, I picked her up. I lifted her off the couch, and she still wasn't letting go of that damn video game iPad. I thought, man, is that an addictive product or what?
It certainly is, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, my gosh. Again, I'm just trying to get you in trouble. I'm trying to make you at least 3 enemies in the state of Georgia.
Right.
Some orthodontists are saying that a CBCT is a standard of care. There's other guys out there that are old, and they say, I've been doing all my braces with a Pano and a Ceph. And then others are saying it's got to be CBCT. And then to get you in full trouble, I've had 2 oral radiologists on my the show talking about that, and they say it's too much radiation. If someone is doing a routine CBCT on all their new patients, it's too much radiation. So no matter what you say now, you're going to offend someone.
I'm going to be in trouble, yes.
Yeah. So you got 3 people looking at you, and you're only going to make one happy. So which 2 are you going to piss off?
Well, first of all, I love CBCT and the technology. It gives us an ability to see things we couldn't see before. It's made me change my mind on certain treatment plans and situations where in the past I would have done one thing, and now with the visibility of the CBCT, I'll treat the case differently. Prime example of that, Howard, is commonly you've seen people who have braces or having braces, and they get dehiscence or thin gums, and now we can see that ahead of time, and that might change the way we treat the case. We use it all the time for impacted canine teeth, where because panorexes are 2-dimensional, you can't see very clearly if a adjacent tooth has got resorbed root. With a cone beam CT, it's super clear, and that can often change the way you plan a case. If you have a lateral that's missing half its root, And we sometimes will take lateral out and convert the canine and put it in its place, for example. So, it really has been a wonderful thing. The thing about taking on every patient, I personally don't do that. I do have a combing machine. It's available, it's used, but it's not used, definitely not used on every single patient. It's used when it's needed, for sure. And but then again, the combing machines now have settings for low dose radiation. I have that on my machine, but I have found that the quality of the image is not diagnostic enough for me. So for that reason, I don't use that setting, and I don't take them on every patient unless they need it.
I am so old. I remember when I got out of school, 2 years after I had my piano machine, there was a software upgrade, and a guy came in and installed it, and it put the R on one side and the L on the other. And
wow.
I still think that was the greatest oral and maxillofacial radiology invention of all time. It made a CBCT look stupid compared to every patient looked at that and said, "Is that my right side?" And that was the biggest excitement in all of oral radiology. No CBCT will ever touch that.
I tell kids, you see that R that's tattooed on your neck? That's an X-ray right there.
That's a what?
I tell the kids when they see the R and the L on the Panorex that R is tattooed on your neck.
A lot of it's very obvious on this generation. I mean, look at Japan. Their birth rate fell below 1. You need to have a birth rate of about 2.4 to maintain the herd, because mom and dad need 2 kids to replace them, and you need a 0.4 kid for the people that die early and all this kind of stuff. And in Japan, and I've done 4 podcast shows from Japan and lecture there, and basically they said, look, they looked at their dad. So your son's looking at you, and he looks at dad and he says, okay, he worked his butt off in grammar school to get in the best high school. Then he worked his butt off in high school to get the best college. Then he worked his butt off in college to get a job at Honda. Then he worked 7 to 7, 7 days a week, came home and drank sake till he passed out and chain smoked and died of a heart attack at 60. And these young girls are saying, I don't want to bring a young Japanese man into this society. And they're really cutting back. Americans at the end of World War II, they were having 5.5 kids per family. They were starting at 17, 18. Now they pushed that back a decade and only have 2. I had 4 kids. My oldest one had 4 kids. The next 2 only had 1 kid. And the baby's still thinking about it. He's like, I don't know about this kid thing. So how are you going to address the work-life balance when it's obvious that in the 20 richest countries in the world, these kids are looking at their dad saying, love you, respect you, I idolize you, but dude, I only got 1 life to live, and I'm not going to sit there and leave it at the factory. So how do you address work-life balance? I mean, work to laugh, don't live to work. How are you going to do this?
Well, I heard someone say recently, I don't remember who it was, but there's no such thing as work-life balance. I'm not sure what's meant by that, but someone who works day and night with their own company, their own business, their own practice, that's, in a way your life, but you've got to be able to, I guess words compartmentalize that and be able to compartmentalize it so that, that when you're home with your family, that you can turn off the office and be with your family. And, it's important for us to all have hobbies. 1 or 2 hobbies you're really good at or really, at least really like doing. You may not be that good at them, but, to find something besides just doing dentistry all the time. And I'm not saying I'm the best at that balance, quote unquote balance. But I try, and it is a struggle a lot of times, because as a business owner, as a practice owner, there are things you have to do that have to happen and have to happen at a certain time. But the thing is, we got to remember too, there are things in our families that have to happen as well. And you don't want to miss out on the important events of your family or your kids either. So it's important to have that communication with your spouse and your kids, and make sure that they're being satisfied and that you're doing what you can to help them have a good life and appreciate you and what you do for them. And it's tough. I mean, there are times in my practice life that I could probably be blamed for ignoring my kids and my wife. And of course, that doesn't make me very happy, but I try to learn from that and do better as time goes on. So just don't forget what's most important to you, and hopefully for most folks, that's their family, and to bear that in mind and cut off the practice when appropriate and spend time with your family.
And all I got to say on that is remember, kids, when you get out of dental school, that you don't have to ever worry about a work-life balance if you don't have a life. So that's
there you go. There you go.
Never had one. And one last thing. I know we went over an hour, and you've been so adorable, still doing this. But they're coming out of dental school. They're going to come out $400,000 in student loans, and I, for 10 years, I started saying, okay, they're finally going to come out, and they're going to control their spending, and they're going to have part-time jobs, and they come. I'm in Arizona. I got AT Stella Mesa. I got Midwestern in Glendale, and they come out of school, $400,000 student loans. You say, well, would you be able to work evenings and weekends? No, I really can't do that.
Isn't that crazy?
And you're just like, oh my God, and then they're telling you that they're not, they can't find a job, and I'll find them like 5 jobs in an hour, and they say, yeah, but that's on Medicaid and Medicare, and I'm saying, dude, you were in a pandemic, you never did a root canal on a live human, and now you're unemployed and you won't go work at a Medicaid clinic. Because it's still, and then he just leased himself a Beamer for $85,000, and I wish I had your hair. I'd pull it out instantly. I don't have any hair left to pull out. But
it's a different mentality. I don't know how they could do that, but it's out there.
How do you teach a kid that? I know you're now a doctor of dental surgery, but you're $400,000 debt. You see that guy there, that homeless guy living behind the dumpster at Kentucky Fried Chicken? He's worth more than you because he has nothing, and you have negative 400. And they already talk about work-life balance. They already want 3-day weekends. And how do you take a kid? And every one of them will say, "Well, I'm not entitled." But I think I should be. And you're like, how do you teach these kids that, number one, if they start at 25 and the first nickel of every dollar they ever earn their entire life goes into a savings account? I mean, I started doing that when I opened up. I graduated May 11th. 87. I had my office open in 133 days. I never spent the first nickel of every dollar I made. Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, and now it's millions of dollars in a 401k. And I'll never touch it because I've always assumed I'll never draw it down. That's for your spouse who lives longer than you do.
Right.
But how do you get them to sit there and realize they're poor? You need to quit spending money, and you need to have 3 part-time jobs. How do you teach that to a kid?
Well, on a spur of the moment question like that, I'm not sure the right answer for it, Howard, but my first thought was the best way to teach is by example. And in my mind, and so that to tell the kids, what you did and what you do to live within your budget and to save for retirement. I didn't buy a brand new car till about 2 years ago. 29 years in practice when I bought my first brand new car, and because I didn't need a new car, and you can save a lot of money not buying new cars. And so if you teach by example, by what you do and what you did, and explain why, and show them what you've been able to do because of that, and what you've been able to save, I think that goes a long ways. So I don't know if that answers your whole question or not, but it is a different mindset that a lot of these kids coming out of school have. And I think, some of them are going to get a rude awakening one day if they maintain that attitude and don't learn from others that have been through it before.
My gosh, I'm trying to think. Just live below your means, man. I'll never forget when that book came out, written by 2 PhDs, and it was called The Millionaire Next Door. And they went through the occupations and which occupation had the most millionaires at 65. Do you remember that book? It was teachers, because teachers.
I remember that.
Because teachers know they're not going to live in a mansion and drive a Beamer, and teachers don't go to vacations in Hawaii. teachers go to the lake and go fishing and make s'mores, and they drive sedans and they buy used cars. And it showed you that the fact that teachers psychologically lived below their means and saved, there were more teachers that were millionaires than doctors, dentists, physicians, MDs, and lawyers. And I just thought, oh my God, that was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen.
Because they spend like crazy, right? They all spend and spend and spend, right? So, yeah. So I don't know if I answered your question fully or not, Howard, but that's what came to my mind. So,
no, I think it was good. So you got to be the happiest orthodontist on earth because your son's about to join you.
I'm very happy about that. Yes.
So did you used to tell him that he would be grounded if he didn't tell you he was going to be an orthodontist in the sixth grade?
No, it was all his choice, and I got surprised. I think it was his junior year of high school. I mean, sorry, of college when he told us that. So I was surprised, and yeah. So it's a good thing. But I have two other kids who are older than him. They didn't want to go near it, and that's okay. You know, I think for any career, you want to do a career that you're passionate about, and he just happened to be passionate about dentistry. So yeah,
that's got to be every dentist dream come true. But hey, big fan of you, big fan of your just everything you do, man. I think you're a class act, and I just thank you so much for coming on the show. But what?
I have one question for you.
Yeah.
That might get you in trouble. Might get me in trouble too. Is this? I've always wondered, Howard, and this is a great place to talk about it. And if you like it, you put a couple of clips of this into the podcast. I always wonder why, because first of all, we as specialists really depend on our general dentist friends to support our practice, right? And so I have a lot of great dentists I work with very closely. And but here's my question. I wonder why some dentists, not all dentists, some dentists feel a need to give out 3 business cards when they refer a patient for specialist treatment. Does that ring a bell to you at all?
You mean they give out 3 of your cards?
No. They'll give, here's Dr. A, here's Dr. B, here's Dr. C. Go find the one you like.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That's very, very common. And to me, it's a big waste of everybody's time. You know, my time, it takes an hour of my time to do a full complete exam. Waste the parents' time being out of work three times. And, you know, so out of those 3 A, B, and C doctors, their children are wasting their time, plus the parents wasting their time. And you know, I think orthodontists historically have kind of, what's the word? Shot ourselves in the foot, in that 20 years ago, we started offering free consultations, right? And so people feel, well, you can go do this because it's free. Well, it's not, it's free to them, but it costs me money and time to do that free consultation. And so, you know, I just wonder why a dentist cannot give a confident referral in a specialist that they're confident can do a great job for their patient. And instead they say, well, here's 3 doctors, choose the one you want. And, you know, I think the proper way to refer, the way I refer, is to hand the patient a referral card or a referral note or a business card and say, here's Dr. Jones. He is the best oral surgeon around here. I'd like to go visit him. If I had anybody to remove my kids' wisdom teeth, he would be the one. And that's a confidence giving referral, rather than saying, here's 3, pick one. And, you know, it's to me, it's strange that happens, and I don't quite understand why it happens. And I don't know if you know the answer to that or not, but
well, my question is in the last 3 decades, what % of your new patients are you getting from referrals from other general dentists versus getting them directly yourself off your own advertising? How has that changed in the last 3 decades?
It's stayed pretty steady. I mean, we still are definitely work with our dentists quite a bit. So it's you know, close to half where patients come from doctor referrals.
You know, I now that my boys are 30, 28, 26, 24, I really learned a lot from listening to them tell stories about what impact. But I've heard my sons tell other dentists so many times and specialists that their dad was always running for mayor of Ahwatukee. Now I was going to be the
Uh-huh.
mayor of Hamburger Town. Like Ryan tells everybody, the last year he lived in my home, every single chiropractor and pharmacist that works in Ahwatukee had been over at my house to barbecue and charcoal and all this, because I knew when I opened up, I remember back in '87, I said, well, why did you pick me? He goes, well, actually, I went to the pharmacist at Walgreens and I said, should I get Oragel or Aleve? And he said, you know what you ought to do at the other end of this deal is a dentist. His name's Howard Fran. Just walk in there, and he goes, well, I don't have an appointment. And he goes, no, tell him Brad sent you, and just walk over there and ask him. He is not gonna. But anyway, so when I found that out, I realized, oh, I didn't. Brad was a patient. I immediately invited him and his wife Frederique over to the house, I know the MDs, they were always they were always snobbish and unavailable and wrong attitude and all that kind of stuff. But my God, you call a chiropractor to go out for dinner, he can't believe another healthcare profession is calling a chiropractor. The naturopaths, that was kind of an ethical problem, because I started taking them to dinner, inviting them to the house, and then they started sending people over that had to have all their amalgams refilled with composites for muscular dystrophy and multiple sclerosis and all this stuff. And a lot of them were really neat. Like every single person, like this one lady, she does pelvic health therapy, I guess, when girls have babies at some of their pelvic, I never had a baby. I look like I'm pregnant, but I have technically never had a baby. And I just was, so what I would say to that orthodontist deal is, that's something. I remember this day. One day we were in Breckenridge and we were sitting in jacuzzi, and my dad, in the restaurant business, they networked with the guys that sold them buns and meat, and it was all one team. And my dad, one time, he'd had a few scotch and waters, and he said to Cliff, Cliff, you know what I hate about you the most that just drives me crazy? And Cliff's like, I didn't know you hate anything about me. What are you talking about? He goes, Cliff, I only make money on the lunch hour between 12 and noon, and when they're driving home from work from 5 to 7. It's the only freaking time I ever make money. And guess when you show up with your damn meat truck and want to unload 1,000 pounds of meat in my freezers and pull somebody off the grill and all this stuff like that? And Cliff said, Gene, I never even thought about that one time, but I'll tell you one damn thing, I'll never frickin' do it again. So I say this about humans. I mean, I look at my family. I mean, I'm the only normal one in my family. My two older sisters are nuns. My little brother lives in Australia. I mean, and humans are just really, really, really complex. They're really complex. And what I would do is I think that I would always think, well, hell, on Friday night, if I'm going to go to the steakhouse and I'm going to do that, well, invite a friend and pick up the tab. And it's always people in the healthcare community. It's always pharmacists, chiropractors, naturopaths. You invite in MDs, and maybe they'll go once every 4 or 5 years, or they'll do it one time or something like that. But I tell you what, it's everything you need to be successful. You learned in kindergarten, in the playground. And what I would do with apes is one of the greatest referral guys I ever know. I mean, he's a general dentist that built a referral implant practice, and he's not an oral surgeon. He's not a periodontist. He's an implantologist. But he went and built a cabin at the lake, and was always having fishing trips out there. And he has about 80 dentists that probably only really the thing they're most interested is catching redfish down in the Louisiana Bayou. But man, they're friends for life. And I know that dentists are introvert. I know normal people dream about, winning the lottery or being a movie star or something like that. Dentists, they dream about cosines and tangents and derivatives. But man, you just got to stay running for mayor. And if you think you're weird, you're not going to get any friends because all you like to do is shoot clay pigeons with 12 gauge. I guarantee you in Kansas, you can find 50 other dentists who want to go out and shoot clay pigeons with you. I know the richest construction guy in the state of Kansas, and he did the whole thing by buying about a 500-acre ranch with some deer blinds, and he would always wine and dine the clients to come out and deal. But the thing is, man, if you're going to be the mayor of town, you got to be running for mayor, and you're always campaigning, and that's pressing the flesh. And I would tell my family, like, I don't care what you buy, but you're going to buy it in Ahwatukee. You're not going to drive an hour away and buy a couch and a furniture and a pair of if they sell it in 85044, you're going to buy it from them and tell them that you're Howie's boy. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And
that's a great point.
And then a lot of people think about this. You ask him, say, "Hey, Friday night after work, why don't you come over? I'm gonna barbecue. We'll have some beers, whatever." And if they say, "Well, I can't. My daughter's this, that," they hang up the phone thinking, "Did he just invite me to his house to charcoal hamburgers and have a beer or whatever the hell?" And you have to keep running for mayor. And if you have 10 orthodontists doing that, I'd have it solved in 10 dinners, and just keep running for mayor, and you got to get your son on that social deal. And sometimes there's a lot of dentists that are really lucky because, they're, they just want to stay home and read algebra. But their wife is an extrovert, and their wife's a whiner and diner. And so you can take, you can go out for dinner and sit there and be afraid of your shadow, but your wife actually knows how to talk. And she carries the dinner. And so I would just marketing in healthcare, marketing for everything, is just always running for mayor. And again, the greatest, everybody knows this, I don't even know why I'm saying it, but the greatest compliment a patient can ever give is a referral of their friend or loved one. And they're never going to remember what you did. They're never going to, your whole consultation, they don't know the difference between class 1, class 2, they're not going to remember any of that, but they're going to remember how you made them feel. And, and when you beat them up that day and you call them that night and you say, "Doug, Howard, oh my God, I'm sitting down for dinner and I'm thinking you're probably not. Are you okay?" And they're like, you called them so just it's just keep running for mayor and
go over and above whenever you can.
And you can change all those guys. And if you solve that problem, you just take away the conversations with the other two, and now you're getting all of those conversations because you wined and dined, and now you got a kid joining your practice, and just keep running for mayor, keep pressing the flesh, and if you're always running for mayor, you're always going to get elected.
Sounds great.
All right, buddy. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Howard. Appreciate it. It's been fun.
All right. Have a great day.
All right, you too. Thank you. Take care.